And I need to understand that progress comes with boring yourself.
Where does someone start, especially on their EOS journey? Like what's the first thing that they should be looking at?
When we work with a team, with a company that they have a successful product, the first thing we do is that we help them to align around that vision. And we use a tool called Vision Traction Organizer. For 2 years, my house was like shirt all over, piled up. I could even see the place that I was walking in my house because other places were dusty. So that was the first turning point. And there's a big gap of companies that they want to get rich fast, but they understand that getting rich is just a byproduct of being disciplined in your business.
An energy right now that we're hearing about in SF right now as it relates to AI and just like everything going on right now, what are you seeing out on the ground?
I'm afraid that we are creating this society that is going to be extremely segregated. A small portion of people are going to consistently grow, and the other huge part of the society that are being outdated.
Welcome to The Show Goes On. It's a podcast about the people who keep businesses running behind the scenes. My name is Aamir Noorani, and today I'm joined by Rafael Eljou. Is that who you say?
Eljou.
Eljou. Okay. Rafael is a seasoned entrepreneur, business coach, and certified EOS implementer who helps leadership teams gain clarity, focus, and traction. Drawing on his experience founding and scaling ventures, he guides leaders in solving root problems, strengthening execution, and building high-performing teams through practical, proven systems. But Rafael, you've done a lot before this, right? So I want to dig into that and learn about that. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I've done a lot in my 20s, especially when you were talking about things that are not working well. Many of my businesses in my 20s were not working well. Not that the idea was wrong, but because I was not prepared. And when I'm going back to those years, I call myself a jumper. I had an idea. I was just jumping into that idea, unprepared, unplanned, and assuming that this is a golden idea that if I don't do it today, tomorrow somebody will come and steal it from me. I was wrong. A business is not about just ideas, maybe 5% about ideas, 95% about execution and building the team, building the traction, make sure everyone goes to the right direction. And it was painful experiences. I'm more than happy to talk about any of them.
I like that concept of the jumper. I feel like a lot of people relate to that, otherwise known as shiny object syndrome, right? You see something, you latch onto it, and that becomes the book of the week. And then next week you're on to the next thing, and then you fail to reach that level of consistency. So how do you prevent yourself nowadays from latching on to ideas whenever they come to you? Because there are a dozen, right?
Yeah. There is this very interesting test called Kolbe test, Kolbe. And in the Kolbe test, they will test you based on your characteristics, and it will give you 4 distinct numbers. One of the numbers is that how good you are in being a quick actor. So if your number is, for example, beyond 5 and 6 and 7, internally, you have a tendency to quickly start based on an idea. And if I was doing that test in my 20s, I'm pretty sure my quickest start was around 9 and 10. So in my 20s, I went through 3 different business ideas, sold one of them, exit the other one, bankrupt the third one. But when I came to the United States, studied MBA, and MBA helped me to a little bit stretch my understanding about all the different parts of the business. What happened is I decided not to be a jumper, but maybe go on top of the cliff that other entrepreneurs are jumping. And I start to ask myself, if I'm going with that trajectory, how can I help them? What are the tools and disciplines that they need that if I was there with them, they are missing? And instead of continuing to jump, I became a system designer. So I've become focused on how I can help other entrepreneurs. And for the next 10 years of my life, I was focused on the products, services, and processes that will help this whole business in its entirety to go to the right direction. An entrepreneur in the best case scenario has a very clear vision and wants to bring everyone on board. But that board, that ship that the entrepreneur is building needs many other components. So I decided to go to the process of how can we design the ship that this entrepreneur needs, or if we want to go with the metaphor of a jumper, if I need to have two beautiful pair of wings, what are each one of those feathers that will help me to really do a clean jump?
I like that metaphor. I haven't heard that before.
I love metaphors. I'm a storyteller. So these are some of the metaphors that I make for myself.
Yeah. No, I enjoy the metaphors. So when you're sizing up an entrepreneur for the first time and trying to help them, what are some things that you initially look at, and what are some things that you try to help them with right away?
Asking questions. So let me give you an example. You have an idea to build a chain of coffee shops. And you have this beautiful idea. I'm going to build a beautiful chain of coffee shops. And you go and talk to them. Okay, very good. Who's your product designer? Do you have a clear, different line of product that distinguish your chain of coffee shops from other chain of coffee shops? Because if I'm building exact same thing like a Starbucks, then I've already lost my business, right? Mm-hmm. Starbucks already there in every corner. I can't really compete if I'm delivering the exact thing. What are your competitive advantage? What is it that you do different than all the other entrepreneurs? Who are the people who support you? Who are the people that are part of this vision and they have the exact same understanding of the same vision that you have? And then we go to the execution part. I'm an EOS implementer. One of the things that we do is that we help companies not only to align on the vision, but build accountability, focus, and discipline on executing on that vision. So what we do is that we help them to define, for example, weekly scorecards, the leading indicators that will help them to understand exactly what are the things that they should do on a weekly basis to deliver the result. So the more you start to build these systems around them, and the more you help them to see that they need to have a whole concept, not just an idea, and they start to think that, okay, if I want to go through that path or not. Because I'm not sure if you have ever been into these pitch events. There are hundreds of people come and pitch ideas. But boy, if you just look at them for like 10 minutes, you might realize that maybe 10% of them, if you give them the money, they can go to the next step. 90%, it's a good idea, but they don't have the willpower or the expertise to really build a team around that idea. Mm-hmm. So, and you need to help them to understand that, because not only they are going to make investors' life miserable, they're going to make their life miserable, and it's going to be a failure. And no one should go through a failure. Failure is always painful. Unfortunately, we usually learn by our failures. So going back to your question, how do I help them? By just opening and peeling off this onion and make sure that they know that they have to cry on every one of these steps. And if they know exactly what is going to happen and they are willing to pay, then we will go to the direction and the journey together.
Yeah, I like that whole idea of peeling back the onion, right? Because there's many different layers towards building a business. And I think that's what overwhelms entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they just don't know where to start. So where does someone start, especially on their EOS journey? Like what's the first thing that they should be looking at as they're trying to build their team, their company around EOS fundamentals?
Correct. So let's say you have a company, you have a product or services, and EOS really helpful when you have your product and services. If you're in your earliest stage, you're still pivoting about that. Should I sell this product or the other service? EOS is not a good fit. But by the time that you have your product and services, you have your go-to-market, then EOS is very helpful. It will help you with, and for the benefit of those people who don't know, EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And the next question, always people ask that, oh, is that a software? And the answer is no, that's not a software. Softwares are system, but not systems are by default software. The idea about a system is that it's a connection of different components that they are interrelated and they produce the same result. And it's designed around the operation. So going back to your question, when we work with a team, with a company, that they have a successful product, the first thing we do is that we help them to align around that vision. And we use a tool called Vision Traction Organizer. This is a very powerful tool. It's just a 2-page document with 8 specific components. We first start by defining what are your core values. And man, having a core value for a company is such a big game changer. For me, when I first exposed to EOS, I realized that in 20 years of my experience, I have never defined core values for my company. And because I didn't have core values for my company, I never knew who are the right people that can work with me because I was always searching for the expertise and never really focused on the quality, the mentality, the way, the culture to build a unique culture. So we answer what is the core value? What is the core focus? What is our marketing strategy? Where do we want to be in 10 years or 5 years, a long-term goal? What about 3 years from now? What should happen in a year from now? And then we break it into 90-day priorities. So from that top long-term goal all the way down to 90-day priorities that we call them rocks. And then from there, we start to go to the next stage. Once we have the core values, then we ask about what are the right people for the company that are aligned with your core values. And then we restructure the whole org chart. We call it accountability chart because it's not just about the level of who's reporting to who, but what are the things that you need to do. So we clear and strengthen the vision. We clear and strengthen the people component. And then we go to the third part, which is the data component. In the data component, we clearly define the scorecard, 5 to 15 numbers that gives you an absolute pulse of your business. And eventually we break down that concept so every employee have 1 to 3 measurables. Every week, I know that I'm responsible for delivering 3 things. And what are those 1 to 3 things? And that will give me an absolute pulse of my business. And then we go to the next 3 components. I'm more than happy to talk, but just to briefly touch on those, we help them how to resolve issues because as a leadership team, one of your main priorities is to learn how to resolve issues. Then we teach them how to define and improve their processes. And we don't go with creating 500-page SOP, standard operating procedure, but we use a 20-80% rule to document enough about the core processes that will give them 80% of the benefit. And that will make the company really scalable, profitable, and actually fun to work and no chaos, something that I dealt in my life in 20s every day. And there are some entrepreneurs that they feel living in chaos is like part of the game. That's not part of the game. You do not need to, things are changing outside, but inside the company, things should be very well organized. And it's not in the first place, but it should go through a journey of maybe a year that things become very organized. And then the last thing we do is that we build traction for the company. We help them to focus on that 90-day priorities, but get together every week, meeting with the same group of people, same day, same hour, and really look at what has happened in the last week and what are the issues that they need to tackle this week so they can move the needle. I talked a lot.
No, you're good. You're good. And I was hanging on to every word because I'm totally tracking with EOS. And, I agree with you on the core values. We ran a lot of our companies without core values for the first several years. And then we came across like an exercise that talked about how to get to core values. But I'm curious, in your experience, when you come into a company that doesn't have core values or you're coaching them through that, how do they arrive at their core values? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, very good question. So we don't bring just random core values to the company. We ask them, each one of people in the leadership team, suppose that you know someone who's working very well in the company. Think about that person. And people have it, right? Tom is doing an amazing job. Mary, she's great in her job. And then we ask them that, okay, write their values, things that you have seen. Because this company, at this point, because they are successful, they should have had some core values. So we don't just create something out of nothing. We try to extract it out of what they already have. And they start to just add the adjectives of those successful people. And there are some times that they might have also a role model outside of the company. And that's okay if they all agree that that is something that they want to write. So we start to just write all of these adjectives that they think are amazing and great, and they are already part of the DNA of this group, and we all write it on a board. And then it's about, okay, how can we combine some of these together? Because we don't want to end up with like 25 core values. And how can we cross? Because kind of like 5 of these words are saying the same thing. At the end of the day, we want to stay from 3 to 7 core values, maybe 5 in the middle as a sweet spot. And then once we have those core values, then we want to hire and fire and review every employee based on that. We actually teach them a tool called People Analyzer. And every quarter, we mark every employee based on those core values with plus, minus, or plus and minus, meaning sometimes they are representing the core values and sometimes not. And then we define a bar that shows if they are above the bar, then they're in a good position. If they're below the bar, then they need to make changes. Or in the long term, they don't fit this culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard of an exercise where you tell your team, okay, we can only bring, or you tell your leadership team, we can only bring about 5 to 10 people to Mars with us throughout the company. And who are those people? And then once we have those people who are on the ship, what are they all about? Like, what's their DNA, kind of like what you were saying? And that's where you can kind of extract some of your core values then.
That's an amazing analogy. I'm going to borrow that and use that in future. Yeah, because if you go to a place that you have access to no one else, you really think deeply about all aspects of their characters, right? And especially in space missions, every characteristics and every quality is so rare and so important that you want to make sure that you create a perfect team. So it's an amazing analogy. I've learned something. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So one of the other questions I have for you is, how did you get into EOS in the first place? Like, what were you doing before all this, and what brought you over here? But yeah, first, your story.
Yeah. So as I told you, I was a jumper in my 20s and decided to stop jumping in my 30s and became a system designer. And I was very good with designing the business processes, finding the right technologies, better software, hardware, and help companies to automate and govern these processes in a scale. But one thing that I was lacking in my own business was having an operating system. So my business, although I was helping others kind of hit the ceiling, that's one of the terms that we actually use in the EOS terminology. We hit the ceiling, and it's very common. All businesses at some point, they stop growing. So after 4 years, my business hit the ceiling, and I was having my small consulting firm. One of my clients is a good friend of mine. He was going through reading the book Traction. That is the book Gino Wickman wrote about the EOS 20 years ago. And he suggested that I need to read that book because if there are any implications of they adopt the EOS, they wanted to implement all the changes in other systems that I was responsible for. And I said, okay, I'm going to read it, although I was hesitant in the first place. And I said, I'm busy. But he said, no, you're going to read it. And I started to read it. And for me, being the system designer, I wanted to understand if this system that I'm really reading about would work. And I started to apply it to my own business. And I went through the same exercise. And the first thing I did was core values. And it took me maybe a week or so to really go and ask deeper questions about my core values and the company that I'm building. And once I identified those, I realized that all of my hiring were incorrect. Some of them were correct randomly, but others were incorrect. So I started to hire the right people, and I could see the result. My number of sales increased, actually became double. My team members started to increase, and they stay consistent with me. And gradually, I could see the result of EOS in my own business. And when you get to your 40s, you kind of, one of the things that it will change is that you get really strategic with your days. You don't want to waste your days. You want to really do something that you feel at this stage of your life, it gives you the feeling of satisfaction. And I looked back at all of my life experiences, and I felt this is one of those things that I can deliver to other people and make their life way better. If I could give this to myself in my 20s, and if I could coach myself to learn all of that, why I wouldn't do that? And it needed a lot of mental shift for me based on what I was doing. So it took me 6 months to really think and decide and pray and decide and all of that. But at the end of the day, I decided that this is something that I want to do for the next stage of my life. And after the 6 months, I decided to become an EOS implementer. So it's a franchisee, right? You do that. But one of the best decisions of my life. Not only because of the system, the EOS, but the community. Last week I was in our annual gathering, and every one of us, we are competing with each other, right? We each one of us. But this is the community of 870 people who are part of the same family, and we are best friends, and we are very supportive. So I can pick up the phone and call to any other EOS implementer and say, Tom, I have an issue. And they are willing to help me with all the knowledge and resources that they have so I can be successful. So I'm very happy with helping that I'm doing with other entrepreneurs and also being part of this journey with other EOS implementers.
That's cool. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of EOS implementers on this podcast, and almost all of them always talk about the community that you guys have behind the scenes and how helpful and supportive it is. But yeah, tell me more about that community. Why is it like that? Why is that part of the culture?
I actually thought about it a lot. So that's the beauty of what Gino and the first few implementers made. They were very consistent to make sure that this community is going to be a supportive community. And they cooked that idea in the culture of first 100 EOS implementers. So they were very selective to make sure they will hire the right people. And one of the ideas about EOS is that we as an EOS implementer, we want to make sure that we embed all EOS in its entirety into our own practice being an EOS implementer. And that's exactly what Gino did. He's a very friendly guy. And he wanted to make sure that if he's making a franchise out of that, this is not going to be a savvy salespeople who are willing to kill each other for a client, but a community of people who are acting and living and eating together like a family, and they support each other. And they did it one implementer at a time. And if at some point some people were not a good fit, they were open and honest to just make sure that whether they will change or they will not be part of this community. And they cultivated that. At this point, now it's not just 5 or 10 or 50 or 20, it's 800 something. So you go to the first meeting, the first quarterly collaborative exchange, and you can see that. You can see the friendliness. It's very different than any other business networking, for example. Everyone are giving you a big hug. They are friendly, and you learn from that community. And they are still cultivating that culture every quarter. The same thing. They make sure that we stay to that EOS purity and we stay focused on our core values. We are humbly confident. We are help first. We believe in grow or die. We do the right thing. We do what we say. These are the 5 core values that we have. We need to remember them. We need to live by them. That's how this brand will grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I love that you guys all get together too. Where was that get together?
Last week in Orlando. And then others is going to be mostly in Detroit and then where we can choose from one of them.
Oh, okay.
Every
Cool.
quarter.
So they have a couple of them and then you guys decide which one you want to go to.
Correct. And right now we are going to have other QCs in other countries. Like last week, there was one EOS implementer from London, and she said, come to London for a QC and we would love to have you. So EOS is growing to different countries as well. And as it grows to different countries, there are going to be different QCs on those areas as well. And we are free to go there if we want as well. So some EOS implementers, they plan a trip around that. They go and be there in that one day and they go with their family. They stay a couple of days and they enjoy it and they come back.
Oh, that's very cool. I did not know EOS has expanded globally now.
Yeah. And it's growing fast. Yeah. So we have Philippines, Japan, in Europe, the different countries. We have in South America. They are planning to go to India. They're working on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's incredible. We've been using EOS since 2018 and similar. I picked up the book Traction. I remember I was on a plane and it was one of those books where I was like, okay, let me flip through it. And I was like locked in and glued once I started reading and I couldn't put it down because I think it was one of the first business books I've read where it wasn't so much conceptual. It wasn't like, here's a concept and here's a story. Here's a concept and here's a story. It was like things that you could apply right away. So I was like annotating on the book, writing things down, like underlining things, starring everything, because it was so actionable. And I think that's what I liked about EOS is that it's something that you can implement right away. And the concepts are pretty clear. I think the complexity comes with the discipline, right? Can you do it week in and week out? Because that's what builds the execution, what we were talking about earlier.
Correct. Yeah. The concepts are simple by design because it's designed for leadership to completely understand and then roll it out the organization. And the complexity, as you said, is exactly, do I want and do I have the discipline to execute it every week? And sometimes when we are working with companies, you can quickly see that, for example, the owner or the visionary, as we say, is under the assumption that I don't need to be involved, just fix my team. And it doesn't work that way, right? Unless you are an owner's seat and you have nothing to do with day to day of the operation, that's a different thing. But if you are working in a business at every level, you need to be engaged and you need to drink your own champagne and you need to make sure that you will go through the same discipline. Mm-hmm. So if you go to a session and we start EOS with this session called 90-minute meeting that we go and we deliver all about EOS in 90 minutes. So they have a very good understanding of what happens if they go on this journey. And you can see that, for example, the owner is just checking his or her emails and not engaged. And we just stop the talk and we let them to understand that they need to be focused. Otherwise, this doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And that type of culture then trickles down, right? If they see the owner, the founder disengaged, then it creates a culture of disengagement then, right? But if
Correct.
the owner and founder is locked in and they're paying attention and they're all in, everyone on their team has no choice but to step up and create that same type of intensity.
Correct. How long is it that your company on EOS?
We've been working on it since 2018. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's been good. I mean, it really organized the way we do things in our business. I liken it to before we used to call it random ad hoc meetings all the time because we had to figure stuff out and get to the bottom of things. And then maybe you go 2 or 3 weeks without meeting as a team.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I can't believe we used to run things like that. I can't fathom it. And now we have our structured weekly time every Monday at 9 a.m. from 9 to 10:30 to do our L10 90 minutes.
That's beautiful. Yeah, there's been in this annual, actually, we have been told about a new research that showed companies who are running on EOS compared to companies who are not running on EOS or any other operating system. EOS run companies showing 30% growth year over year compared to other competitors. So the trajectory is definitely different. And it will come in the next couple of months, the result and a research all about that.
30%, huh?
Yes. And this is not coming from EOS. This is a third-party consultant. They started to observe for the last 10 years, and they went through a deep research, and they found the result.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense, right? Like if you have your quarterly priorities, your rocks, and obviously you're not going to hit all of them, right? And I get the concept of you get better and better at creating the rocks as you start going along, but you start adding those things up, right? Every week you meet, you're knocking out your to-dos, and then every quarter you're hitting some of your rocks, most of your rocks. All those things start adding up. So. I was watching this clip from Kobe Bryant the other day. I'm a huge basketball fan. Mm-hmm. And it was a clip of Kobe talking about, I wake up at 4:30 and I'm in the gym from 5 to 7. I go home and I nap. And then again, I'm back at it from 9 to 11, right? Then I go home, hang out with my family. And then again, I'm back at it from 3 to 5 p.m. And so he's training like 3 or 4 times a day. And he's saying that he was doing that for the first 5-6 years of his career. And he began to see like how much faster he was moving than his peers. And by the point he gets to 5 or 6 years, there's no way that they can catch up to him because he's put in the reps, he's put in all the hours to get there. Correct. And so similar to EOS, right? You can have one entrepreneur that's, meeting randomly and sometimes getting some stuff done. And 1 week is really intense and they're knocking everything out. 3 weeks goes by, not much. And you compare that to the other entrepreneur that's very steady. Every week, they're knocking out their to-dos. Every quarter, they're knocking out their rocks, most of them. And I feel like their trajectory is a lot higher, right? Because they're staying more consistent throughout the year then. And then by year 4 or 5, 6, I mean, they're already way ahead because they've put in all the reps, they've built the team, they've built the core values, they're hiring, firing, rewarding around them. So
yeah, exactly. Actually, I think it was a week ago, I was talking to my coach. So I'm doing a little bit of martial arts, boxing and Muay Thai. And I asked my coach, his name is Eddie, I said, Eddie, have you ever been able to train someone better than yourself? And he said, he kind of gave me a sigh and said, no. And I felt, why, Eddie? He said, I haven't found anyone as committed as myself. And it's all about commitment, because commitment will help you to build the discipline, and discipline will produce a result. Discipline is something that we are lacking in many, especially even younger generation. Unfortunately, right now we are going into 2 cycles in this society. There is one cycle that people are very disciplined and they became the celebrities, the champions, the entrepreneurs, the most powerful people. And then the other part are constantly just consuming news about them, spending their life in Instagram and social media and just moving the thumbs up and down. Mm-hmm. But they really don't understand that in order to get there, the one thing you shouldn't do is just waste your time watching other people, but you need to stop everything and build discipline for yourself in whatever area that you like. And once you do that, then you will get the same result. But there's a big gap. There's a big gap. And it's the same thing with the businesses as well. And there's a big gap of companies that they want to get rich fast, but they understand that getting rich is just a byproduct of being disciplined in your business. One of the least fun thing to do, and one of the biggest gap in every company is defining and designing the processes. No one likes to do that. Like, you feel like, what am I doing? Just documenting what I'm doing. But that's the backbone of your company. And that's actually what makes your company to be scalable. But in order to do that, you need to take the time, take the effort, and spend the time and define it. And once you define it, then you need to go to the next step, which is even harder, followed by all. Now, I want to make sure that everyone are being trained. We measure, we have a feedback loop. If they're not doing the right work, then we need to train them. If they are doing the right work and there's a gap in our process, we need to improve our process, and we need to have that feedback loop again and again and again. And having every day as boring and mundane as possible, because hopefully nothing new is coming. It's just the same thing that we have been trained, and we do that. But the result is very fun and exciting because the company is constantly growing. And as we grow, we have more capacity. We can now bring more exciting things into the business and build a boring backbone. The backbone should be boring because it's the same thing. Nothing should change. We should have consistent processes. What we do for the outside should be exciting because they are getting new product and services. Inside, we should have very few chaos on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Boring on the inside, exciting on the outside.
Right.
So you strike me as a pretty disciplined and process-oriented person. Is that a correct assessment?
Correct. And there is a beautiful proverb in Farsi language that's it is like this: from who did you learn to be polite? And the answer is from impolite people. And how did I become disciplined? By just observing myself and living through my chaotic life. So all the way to 20s, I was living a horrible life. And it really became evident when I moved out and I went to my different city for my university. And for 2 years, my house was like shirt all over, piled up. I could even see, I'm just exposing my 20s, I could even see the place that I was walking in my house because other places were dusty. So I lived for like 2 years in that chaos. And at some point I realized that I'm not going to function. So that was the first turning point. And it took me maybe 1 or 2 years to realize that I need to clean my house every week. And it's boring, but that's what I need to do. But I could see the result. And that was my 20s. And when I get to my 30s, I realized that out of all those chaotic business experiences, I realized that I need to be disciplined mentally. And I need to understand that progress comes with boring stuff. Before, I was under the assumption that I should always try something new every day. I hate the fact that I need to do the same thing the same day, the same time of day. You tell me every day you need to wake up at 5 o'clock and go to gym. I don't want that. I want to do one day maybe 5 p.m., the other day 8 p.m., the other day 2 p.m.
Mhm.
And guess what? Most of the time you're not consistent. So I've learned how to be disciplined one day at a time. And I'm still learning. The martial art that I started again after like 20 years last year gives me a way more deeper understanding of the discipline. Because you go there and you do whatever kick, for example, that you're practicing, and you're not delivering the result. And every day you need to ask yourself, am I willing to say, well, I'm in my 40s, man, just take it easy? Or do you say, I don't care. I've never pushed myself. Maybe I do a kick and my leg hurts, but that being hurt can be a point to progress. And you keep kicking back and keep kicking back. And the more you do that, you're actually working in your muscle, in your brain muscle, to build that discipline internally. And then you can apply that to your business as well. Doing a kick on a bag is not different than picking up the phone and having a sales call, and people will reject you, right? You get tons of rejection in every business environment. As an EOS implementer, we have a product that is amazing, but in order to provide it to other people, we need to first find the right audience. EOS is great for our target market, are people who are willing to be open and honest and vulnerable and coachable. You can have this great team, but if you're not a coachable guy, I can't help you, right? Because you're not asking for help. And you will get a lot of no's, but you need to have that discipline that that's okay. I'm not losing my confidence. And Aamir, to be very honest with you, sometimes you lose your confidence. Like that really happened 4 weeks ago. With all the things that I've done, or a couple of different bad experiences that I've had, experiences that were not really going through that direction that I was looking for, I lost my confidence. I gave a call to one of my coaches. I have a coach as well. And I told him that I went through a practice of like in half an hour, thinking about all the hard and failures in my life through like 40 years. And I told him that I'm a failure. And it's amazing how easy your brain can just manipulate you. Mm-hmm. And he told me that, okay, very good, very good. And he listened and said, have you had any success? And I said, huh? Have you had any success? And he helped me to remember my successes. And then he said, and as I was remembering those, I realized that nothing has changed. I'm the same person. It's just a state of mind. I've lost my confidence. And then he helped me to just build that confidence. And actually, he gave me a book to read. And if you haven't read it, I highly suggest it's called The Confident Mind.
Okay.
And it helps you to build your confidence exactly like Gino did with building your business. It's not just wishful thinking or word of encouragement. It's very systematic, building a foundation and then layer upon layer. It will help you to understand how the confidence work in our brain and how we can build it and protect it. And it doesn't matter what's happening outside. It's the state of mind inside. So going back to the discipline, yes, I'm disciplined because I've learned how bad and how chaotic it can be to be undisciplined. And I don't want to go back to my version in 20s. That's the idea.
Yeah, I hear that. And you know what? While you're talking towards the very end, I realized, I'm sure you've seen this before, the brain is like one of the most complex things out there. And like any software computer program, it can be programmed to whichever way you'd like it to be. So things like confidence and discipline, all those things can be programmed into your brain.
Correct.
If you're intentional about it, right? So I'll definitely check out that book, Confident Mind. I haven't heard of that one before. As you're talking, I was also like, man, I should really clean out my closet this weekend. I have been pushing that off forever.
Cleaning what?
Cleaning out my closet this weekend. Because, Yeah. Because it is, that mess trickles into your daily life then. right?
Correct.
It sits there as garbage. And so you want to be able to clear it out and make
Correct.
sure that you're giving yourself the space in the room to think and breathe and work on things that are most effective for you rather than walking into a chaotic environment.
Correct. Correct. And when you are designing your house, a house is a system. There's no difference. One of the things that I've learned again is that there are many things that I feel I need that, but I really don't need them. So these days, I'm very obsessed if I'm adding anything into my house. Do I have a specific place for that? Otherwise, I don't want that. I don't want things on top of things on top of things. Like if you look at my background, I have my gym over there. This is my thinking place. I have a TV and some other my library here. So I have a couple different directions that each one of them are designed for a specific use case. But it should be clean and I need to be focused when I'm going into that zone. I don't want anything to clutter that experience when I'm going to that other experience.
I like the zebra too. That's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. What does that signify, or was it just something that caught your eye?
This is this is a TV and the frame TV from Samsung.
Wow.
Yeah. And frame TVs, you can put different things. This is from one photographer that did wildlife photography, and I love animals, and I love the style that he has. It fits very nicely with the simplicity that I'm expecting to see in a picture, so I like it. And there are a couple others as well. There is a tiger, there is a wolf, there are a bunch of them. Sometimes I choose different.
Yeah. No, I have the frame TV at home too, but that looks so much like a painting. And I'm like, wow, okay, that really blended in perfectly. Yeah. I can't believe it fooled me. So you're based out of SF, right?
Correct.
Okay. One more thing I want to wrap up with then. There's an energy right now that we're hearing about in SF right now as it relates to AI and just like everything going on right now. So can you talk to me a little bit about that? You're in the mecca of it right now. What are you seeing out on the ground?
It's obvious that it's going to keep growing. It's not going to stop. And I'm pretty sure it's going to eat many jobs. Here's my own personal dilemma. I have a love-hate relationship with technology. Like, I understand technology. It's kind of like in my DNA. The part that I'm not sure about the future that we are going is that if we are going to this future of abundance that we are hearing. And as a system, when I'm looking at this system, it doesn't seem that we are going to a balanced future. Because this is the first time that we are outdating our own brain. And we are building the product that is getting consistently better than us. I give you an example. I'm a big user of Notion. I used to design Notion for other companies. Just 2 days ago, Notion agents are now available. And I was thinking about it this morning about some of the use cases that I wanted to have for my own business. And I realized that now I can design this custom agent that will eliminate a job because I need to have an assistant who does all those sort of things. Now I don't need that person. Now, when you scale that to a society, I'm afraid that we are getting to a society that in the very few next years, it creates a massive amount of unemployment. And I don't understand where the society will go. So at some point, I feel energized with every new piece of technology that I see, and especially every new improvement in AI. I enjoy the fact that now I have the library of the world in my pocket anywhere that I go, and I can learn anything that I want. On the other side, I'm afraid that we are creating this society that is going to be extremely segregated. A small portion of people are going to consistently grow, and the other huge part of the society that are being outdated. I do not enjoy if I go out and I see that people are jobless. Even if you pay them, here's the other part that I have a very hard time to understand. Every day we are waking up because we have certain skills that we can use. Now you give me the money and you tell me that starting tomorrow, you have no use. I'm going to be crazy. Like, what am I going to do? It reminds me of Pinocchio cartoon that you can go to this game land and all you need to do is just play a game. We are going to have an identity crisis in the next few years. And I don't know what's going to happen. So how do I feel it? It's like the next tsunami that will wash away everything. But I'm afraid when the tsunami comes, who are floating and who are under the water.
Yeah. Yeah, it's clear to see that a lot of roles that, were considered high value are now becoming commoditized, especially engineering.
Correct.
Exciting for people who don't know how to be software engineers because now they can put together anything. A little scary for the software engineers that spent their entire lives building this up, and now they've seen that, oh wow, the job now is becoming orchestrating a bunch of AI agents to act on their behalf.
Correct.
What happens to all those junior level engineers that are coming in?
Correct.
So
And this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
We get to the point that we are going to have a AI CEO.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I'm afraid that middle management, especially in Fortune 500s, they don't see the impact of AI in their life. They think this is just for technical work. But if you really think about the layers of management, we had this structure of manager, senior manager, director, VP, senior VP, all of that, because they were agents of making decisions broken down in the organization, and again, results rolled up.
Mm-hmm.
That whole structure can go away now that we are living in this ocean of AI. If I'm living in one infrastructure that has all the information, why do I need to have a series of management to constantly break things and roll up?
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now. Like when you go to the business school, you get MBA, they will teach you about the trends, and you always need to think about 5 years from now and try to understand that. I have no idea.
Yeah. It's a very interesting time.
Right.
Well, Rafael, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed our conversation too. And I hope to keep in touch. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Aamir. I appreciate it.
Take care.